Good morning. Welcome to WildEarth and vicariously welcome to Africa. It's great to have you along. If you have stumbled upon this website by mistake, stay around. Pour yourself a drink, boil the kettle, do whatever you like, but for the next 3 hours follow us around the wilderness that is the Djuma Private Game Reserve where we find ourselves. To the west we have the tribes of the Mashangane people, and beyond that the Drakensberg. To the east we have the rising sun and the coastal plain of Mozambique leading down to the Indian Ocean, and between those two things we've got the untrammeled wilderness of the Greater Kruger National Park, 3.5 million hectares of wildlife wonderland. Our plan today, for those who don't know, my name is James, and on camera we've got Brian today. There's another vehicle out for the new viewers, and on that vehicle we've got Brent and Jean-André, and in the control room, pushing the buttons, twiddling the knobs and giving the instructions, we've got Tara and the inimitable Andrew the Artvark. My plan this morning, and therefore your plan inadvertently, is to do a U-turn, head down south and try and find some leopard tracks. Brent is doing similar sort of thing, but we'll see what we find on the way. We didn't hear a great deal during the night, but those wonderful people watching the cameras at the dam cams did. Over at Arathusa there was a male leopard seen about probably an hour and a half ago, so we're hoping to perhaps go and see if we can find him. And then on the Djuma Dam cam we had an elephant visit, we had hyena apparently calling throughout the night, and hippo growling apparently. So as we turn around and go on our way, we're going to go across to Brent, see what he's found, and I'll see you a little bit later.
Good morning everyone, and welcome on the Sunrise Safari. My name is Brent. I've got Jean-André on camera with me, and we have a little cold looking side-striped jackal who was actually lying next to, where did it go? A little steenbok. We'll try to find the steenbok now, but carrying on our jackal conversation, a couple of mornings ago, that the side stripes are far more prone to feeding off insects and fruit and vegetable matter than meat. I don't think a steenbok would be as relaxed around a black-backed jackal. Where did that little steenbok go? Let me just move back a little bit. Oh. Sorry, jackal. Didn't like the start of the car. Where's that little steenbok? She was right here. Disappearing steenbok. Oh no, there she is. She literally walked about a meter past that jackal, and the jackal didn't even lift its head. He stayed in the curled up position. Unfortunately, steenbok is on the move, so we're going to continue on. So thanks to all the zoomies for the updates on the cameras at the Djuma and Arathusa waterholes. I heard those lions that you guys heard, so I've moved off into this area to see if I can find them. Unfortunately, that calling and it sounded like it could possibly be north of our northern boundary. I check the main road, the main boundary. So for those of you who might be new joining us, welcome. You're on a live African safari. Welcome on the back of our game drive vehicle. We're in search of everything out here, from the plants and the insects to the lions and the leopards and the elephants. We also are interactive, so you're able to ask us questions while we're out on safari. So, welcome, and to all our regulars, always an absolute pleasure to have you with us. We really do love your support and constant interaction through questions and quizzes. Very, very chilly this morning. We're all bundled up.
Good morning, all stations.
Those of you new, pop off over the side of the vehicle. I'm looking for the tracks of animals, the predators, so lion, leopard, cheetah, wild dog. Oh, just jogging off to my right is that little side-striped jackal. So it's going to cross the road in front of us. And we can hear the francolin are not too pleased about having the jackal around, and the little rattling testiculars, all the birds alarming at him. Ground nesting birds particularly see side-striped jackal as a threat, not so much for catching them, but raiding their nests. Bird eggs make up not a huge percentage, but quite a substantial amount of a side-striped jackal's diet. They are complete opportunists like most predators. Even the jackal looks a bit chilly, all fluffed up this morning. Let's move forward a skosh. Well, William said if it's female, he names her Jacqueline. But unfortunately, as we can see, just under the tail, it is a male side-striped jackal. And the only time you can really tell is if you do get a look under the tail. Otherwise, from size and whatnot, they're very, very similar, and it is quite difficult to see. Unless they've got babies, and then you can see definite suckle marks on the female. But this is a male. You can see searching around, and the rattling testiculars are still not too pleasant, but pop down, still a bit nippy, probably had a busy night. So we're going to continue on and see if we can pick up some tracks of a slightly bigger predator. Your jackal, like me, is definitely waiting for the sun to pop up the horizon and start warming us up. Oh, hello. Just give me a second here, guys. There's tracks of a single male lion. Just trying to see if there's tracks of the whole pride. There are. This is not great news, I'm afraid. Unfortunately, the road is quite hard here, so it is going to be quite difficult to show you the tracks. But the thing that bothers me most is that they're on the northern boundary and heading north. Just going to double check, make sure that they have actually crossed. And the hippo tracks are actually on top of them, which means they moved through here quite a while ago. Some of them went off there. There's still one walking down the road. What we are going to do is maybe have a quick look at Sydney's dam. We've got that big open area. Maybe we'll be able to see. Maybe they're lying out in the open. Unfortunately for us, Sydney's is across our traverse line. There's another track went off there. Still one male lion left. Sorry guys, you might hear me having a chat to a vehicle, a morning meeting. And there are no lion tracks left, so they've all crossed here. Morning, morning, morning.
Morning, Brent, how are you?
Very good, and yourself?
Good, thank you.
I see you, Anne.
Yeah.
The whole Nkuhumas have crossed here, into this block around here.
Okay, all right, we just came also there. So
Okay.
follow that.
Okay, perfect. And we're going to go have a look. Yes, yeah, we've got female leopard tracks around Gallagher, so I'm going to go back and follow up on those.
Leopard, please let us know.
Sure, I will do. Well, enjoy everyone. Have a good morning.
Thanks,
So, sad but true, the Nkuhumas have departed. They have gone to the north. So, we're going to go back. I saw some female leopard tracks as we got started around the camp. And we're going to go have a look for those. We just let all the game drives know that the lions have left our area. Tracks of a pride cross north at Sandy Patch junction with Bubbles Hook at line. I'm going to be leaving the area. Hi, Chris. Chris would like to know whether jackals are closely related to foxes. Not closely related. They wouldn't be able to crossbreed, but they are definitely related. They are part of the dog family or the canis family. And Gilly would like to know whether the white tip to the tail is a distinguishing feature. It is, Gilly, but only in the side stripe jackal. This morning, that one didn't have an actually very distinguishing white tip to the tail. But the one we saw the other morning did. And I think that could just be because it's a bit cold and damp and we're not able to see it as well. And that jackal then, when we left it, curled up in a little ball to try and keep warm. but it is definitely a distinguishing feature of the side-striped jackal. The black-backed jackal does not have that white tip to the tail. It has a completely black tail. So, the lions have gone, and now let's see if the flying leopards have decided to become terrestrial for a day and not disappear over roads like they were yesterday. Hi Kathy from Tennessee, welcome on the Sunrise Safari. And speaking of sunrise, it's busy coming through the Combretum woodland at the moment. So Kathy would like to know, what family do jackals belong to? And they are very much part of the dog family. Kathy, so Canis, so they're related to domestic dogs, wolves, foxes, dows. And there we go. Here comes the sun. So we're going to continue on and see if we get luck with those female leopard tracks. And it is very chilly this morning. Well, even though it feels colder than it has a couple of other mornings ago, it's actually not. It's 11 degrees Celsius, 52 Fahrenheit. I think the coldest we've had so far this dry season has been 7 or 6 degrees Celsius, which was in the 40s in Fahrenheit. And for us, that's pretty much about as cold as it gets out here. 4 degrees, there we go. 4 degrees is the coldest we've had, which I think at these temperatures in an open vehicle, it all just feels cold. So when we get to the junctions of roads, it's always very important to check tracks. A lot of the predators, lion and leopard, will use these roads as highways. So while we continue to track, we're going to cross across to Commander Bond, see what he's been up to. And we'll be back with you a little bit later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy. We have stopped here mainly because it is 11 degrees Celsius, which is about 52 Fahrenheit, and we are freezing. My thumbs inside Scott's little mittens are cold to the point of frozenness, and so we thought we'd stop and show you this rather magnificent African sunrise. It's just peeped up over the horizon, and it's a fairly typical sort of winter's morning chorus going on. The morning chorus is I might liken it to some sort of a classical work. It's a sort of, it's chamber music versus the Beethoven's Ninth, which is more the summer style of dawn chorus. So we've got a very gentle sort of a chamber quartet going on at the moment, rather than the explosive power of the Ninth. Right. We've been looking for leopard tracks. We have so far failed to find any, but there are some around, and there are various people following up on them. So we may well be lucky. There are tracks of a huge elephant bull that I've been following around for the last few minutes, and I would really like to see him. I have yet to see a big elephant bull here. Quite a few elephant herds, but not bulls. And just to the left here, sorry, that's fine. You can see what he has done to this tree. He has torn it to shreds. Let me just go and sample a piece of this. Now, this particular tree is called Acacia gerardii, or the red thorn. And it's called the red thorn, you can see, from the color of the bark and of the twigs. Ow! Now, you saw how easily that came off the tree, and that's why the elephants tend to choose the acacias, because this cambium layer that I'm separating here comes off in huge strips, unlike the marula tree, which tends to come off in chips. Now, Brian, would you like to taste this?
Yes.
I will eat it first. And you can actually taste a bit of nutrition in it. There we go. You can. It tastes like sort of a vitamin drink without the sugar. What do you think?
It's not bad actually.
It isn't bad. So that's the acacia cambium, or that the elephants are after. And you can see, again, I've said this a few times, but you can see how they must, if in a place where there are lots of elephants, they completely modify the structure of the vegetation. And this poor old Acacia gerardii has survived this attack. Whether he'll survive the next is uncertain. Right. Let us press on. So a lot of the stuff I've tasted out here is fairly foul, very untasty, bitter. A lot of the leaves are very bitter, but that's actually really nice. Look, it's not like chewing on a piece of sugar cane, but you can definitely, it's not bitter, and you can definitely taste, I don't know, you can taste the vitamins. Right. The good news is there are tracks of a male leopard here. The bad news is that they're underneath the elephant and some hyenas. So I don't think they're the most recent tracks in the world. Probably very early last night. But we'll see if we can't find him. We did hear a leopard around this area early morning, and that's why I'm down here. So obviously one of the best and easiest easiest ways to age tracks is by checking what's on top of them. So just in very basic terms, if you've got a leopard track and say a white-tailed mongoose has walked along it, you know a white-tailed mongoose is almost exclusively nocturnal, and so you know that they're from pretty early the night before. If they've got dove tracks on them, you know that doves are not active at night at all, and so they're probably a bit later on, but last night. And if they're on top of the dove tracks, well then you know it's this morning. becomes a lot more difficult when you start trying to interpret the age just from how much the sand's fallen into them and that sort of thing. Hello, Virginia in Kentucky. Nice question. Will a leopard leap from tree to tree if there is danger on the ground? Virginia, no, they won't. In fact, not even, so monkeys will do it, but baboons don't, and they're far more competent in trees than leopards are. They'll go up a tree if they know whatever is chasing them cannot go up a tree. But if you or I or a lion came to the bottom of a tree, they'll go, for a lion they'll go higher up, but if they can get out before the lion or before us get to the base of the tree, they will, and they'll run. Because it's much easier for them to hide than because you're very vulnerable in a tree if whatever you're worried about can come up after you. And they're definitely not competent enough in trees to go from tree to tree like a monkey. So the monkeys will definitely move around the treetops, but leopards no. I've often spotted leopards in a tree on foot, and they'll look at you, and if you don't spot them soon enough, they'll come down and disappear into the bush. They don't wait up there to see what's going to happen. Hello, Bernice in Tennessee. A question of disease prevention. Canine distemper you speak about, and does it affect the cats, and have there ever been outbreaks here? The answer is there certainly have been outbreaks here. What have you spotted, Brian? A little duiker. Little duiker doing what duikers do best, and that's diving away. Well spotted, right? So Bernice, yes, we certainly do get canine distemper out here, and we've had outbreaks, and it doesn't tend to affect the cats too much, but it certainly affects the wild dogs. And in fact, it's one of the major killers of our wild dogs. When distemper outbreaks occur in the communities outside, we tend to lose a lot in the way of wild dogs. We're just coming up on Twin Dams at the moment, not Twin Dams, Treehouse Dam, and we'll just sit here and have a brief listen while I answer the rest of Bernice's question. It's quite a complicated issue, Bernice. But here we are. We'll just have a listen. It's nice to stop and listen and just check what's going on. Bernice, it's important to note that a lot of the communities to the west of the Kruger Park are very poor. They're very little infrastructure, and so they're no veterinary services, or very few, especially for domestic animals. So a domestic dog, for example, who gets rabies will have almost no cure. I mean, so there's very little in the way of vaccination that goes on. So diseases that break out in the domestic animals and domestic stock often tend to cross the line, and there's huge efforts to stop that happening. In terms of the other question was, do we provide do landowners put out baits with rabies vaccines and that sort of thing in them to vaccinate the animals? The answer is no, they don't. Most of the animals out here although they can carry rabies. So there are lots of mongoose apparently that carry rabies. They don't express it, so it doesn't affect them. They don't show any symptoms. I think it can affect lions, but not. It doesn't affect them very severely. They definitely do watch the issue though, but there's no form of vaccination. The area is simply too vast for us to possibly try and vaccinate against diseases like that. But we do watch it very carefully, especially if there's an outbreak amongst the domestic dogs or cats in the communities outside. Not much going on here at a treehouse dam, so we're going to press on and possibly head to the west, terra incognito to Arathusa. See what happens there. Very nice question from Liz and William. First of all, Liz, you want to know why did what gives the pinkish color to those strips of bark that I picked? It's tannin. Tannin in the bark, in the outer bark, and that's what gives it the color. And they've actually used that bark for tanning leather before. And then William, very nice question. Can you use it for making rope? Absolutely you can. There are one or two trees that are a bit better than that, but you certainly can use that acacia cambium and inner bark to make rope. It makes very good rope if you plait it together quite nicely. Nice. Right. I'm just going to get a quick update from the Game Drive channel. It seems like there are some leopard tracks quite close to us. So I'm just listening to them in my ear now. So I know where they are, or where the tracks are, so we'll head in that general direction. Do you want to confirm anything at the hyena there? And while we're in this area, I think we'll just pop across and just check the hyena den. On the cold days like this, they're often around about there waiting in the morning. Hey, affirmative? Okay, cool. So we're going to go and see if they aren't huddling in the new rays of the sun. Turns out someone's already been there and there's nothing there, so we'll skip that and move straight onto the leopard tracks. So as we come up onto the crest areas, the air's just starting to warm again. The tinges of cold from the crest areas are starting to disappear as the warm air rises and the cold air sinks down into the dips. It's really rather pleasant. You'll notice me starting to drive slower now as Brian and I warm up in the rays. degree of accuracy. Save to take some of the genetic material out from, I'm sure you could find some DNA samples deep in the bowels of the termite mound, but yeah, I don't think aging them is an easy process at all. So you can see that one isn't active. There's no evidence of new building. The grass is starting to grow there. I think probably fairly recently rejected, say probably the beginning of the last rainy season. But they'll definitely erode away eventually if they're not covered in grass and if they're not recolonized. Right, we're now on Arethusa, so I'm going to check the radio here, see what delights are on board here. So we're going to go across to Brent while I follow up on what's going on Arethusa, and we'll see you in a little while. I know he's following a leopard, so I wish you and him the best of luck.
Welcome back, everyone. We heard monkeys' alarm calling in the drainage line around the Vuyatele Lodge. We saw the monkeys, we saw where they were looking, found tracks of a female leopard and a male leopard. So I'm just standing by here trying to listen, and the tracks headed up in a sort of westerly direction towards Gallagher shortcut. So I'm just standing by and listening for a few seconds, and I'm going to try loop around, see if any tracks come out on that road. If not, I'm going to come back and then take a walk through this drainage line. So let's go have a look on Gallagher shortcut quickly and see what's happening there. But there's definitely leopard in this area. It's a very close to where James lost those tracks last night, and I'm convinced that with the alarm calling that went on, those leopards have to be somewhere in this area. Unfortunately, the area those tracks went into is a myriad of little drainage lines, so incredibly difficult to get a vehicle and maneuver in. But what I'm hoping is they're going to continue on and pop out on the next road. Definitely got a good feeling about this morning. We know they're there. We've got them sort of in an area that we've checked the roads going in and out. So confident they're in this area. Now it's just trying to find them. Little Nyala just dashing off there. Where's your mom? You must be around. Standing by. Okay, copy, thanks, text. I'm going to check Gallagher shortcut now. the last encounter I had was going on that large animal path, heading up towards between the Shkovas up to Gallagher shortcut. So while we continue tracking, we're going to jump back across to James, who's got something interesting for you guys to have a look at.
Hello. Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy. The reason you crossed so hastily to us was we had a little bird called a shikra, which is a type of a goshawk. I will find you a picture thereof. As with most of these birds, they tend to fly off before we're able to show you to them. They only last about 3 seconds per sighting. So by the time we've leveled off the camera and told somebody about it, they disappear. The shikra is that little bird there. Used to be called the little banded goshawk. That's the shikra. So identifiable by the beautiful little yellow legs and then bright red eyes. None of the other goshawks have got those bright red eyes. And all of the birds on this page are called accipiters. An accipiter is basically like a hawk, which will try and catch other birds, often on the wing. So they don't often hunt onto the ground. They'll often catch birds in the air. There he is, the shikra. Right, we're now nearing the Aratuza International Airstrip. Where I'm hoping there will be something in the way of mammal life. There doesn't seem to have been anything found on Arathusa this morning. Yet, anyway. The morning is very young. It's still pretty chilly. The sun is taking its sweet time to warm up the air. Brian is still trussed up in blankets and mittens and all other manner of jackets. Of course, it's much colder for him back there because he doesn't have the dashboard to protect him from the cold. When Wendy was new, of course, you could use a heater that used to warm the legs, which was, I'm sure, very pleasant. But as with most Land Rovers, the engine tends to work for a while, but everything else breaks 3 days after you get it. Hello Joe, what a lovely question. Are there lots of salt deposits in the water holes when they dry up? Joe, no there aren't, and I'll tell you why. This land that we are driving in now is very ancient. It hasn't experienced anything in the way of volcanic activity for millennia, and so it tends to be fairly nutrient poor, and most of the salts that there are in the geology have leached down towards the bottomlands. So these crest areas, if you do have a water hole here, no, there won't be much in the way of salt. And in fact, most of the water holes do occur in the bottomlands where the area is relatively salty anyway, but you won't get anything in the way of a proper salt deposit, no. The soil tends to be slightly saltier, but I mean, to human taste, I can hardly taste the difference. So no real huge salt deposits, no. very ancient land that's been leached over millennia and millennia. And that's why it's so hopeless for any kind of agriculture. But works beautifully for this, because the animals and trees and birds that occur in the area have evolved here, and so they can deal with the nutrient status of the soil. Hear a Franklin calling off to the right hand side there, but I don't think it's shouting at anything specific. Hello Patty in Michigan. You want to know, oh look at that. We were talking about secretary birds yesterday. You see them, Brian?
I do.
There are two secretary birds. Oh, that's beautiful on the airstrip there. That is spectacular. We'll go a bit closer. I'm just going to drive very, very slowly, so as not to frighten them off. That is magnificent. We had a wonderful question about secretary birds right here, I think yesterday morning. So Patty, you want to know what standards are used to decide, and who decides what sort of research gets done here, and what sort of cost-benefit ratio is used when we decide on what, you know, how to harm the animals, etc. Patty, basically it's up to the landowners themselves. In the national park they have a whole scientific services division that does research. A lot of it is on vegetation and herd dynamics and social structure that doesn't actually have any physical effect on the animals. So we don't tend to do a lot of darting animals and taking samples and that sort of thing. The major mammal work is done with collars and GPS tracking, and that tends to have very little effect on their lives at all. There's a lot of autopsy done, I'm sure, on naturally found dead animals, but very little in the way of actual collection. The collection was the term, the euphemism people used to use for basically catching and killing animals. Very little of that happens, if any, anymore. So here are these magnificent secretary birds. I'm going to stop here. They're already being slightly affected by us. Just observe them with my powerful binoculars. I mean, those legs are quite something, aren't they? If they're not, I suspect they're looking for things like termite mounds now, termites to eat. And if they're not doing that, those rather elegant legs are used to stomp on snakes' heads. They've got vicious little talons, or not little talons, vicious talons. Oh, that's spectacular. These are not common birds. And while they are enormous and spend a lot of their time foraging on the ground, they can fly. I mean, and when they get up into the thermals, they fly very well. But it's not easy for them to get off the ground. So they will prefer to sort of run along in weather like this. See if we can get a bit closer, Brian. I'm not sure how confiding they're going to be. Just flown into the Arethusa International Airport. get a bit closer by. You can see that they're starting to get a little bit uppity. I know it's very difficult to see with this. I don't think we're going to get much closer than this. She's already turning away from us, and they just start to sort of walk a bit faster. A bit like somebody who knows they're being followed down a street. They walk a little bit quicker. Just want to see if they're at all sexually dimorphic, so I can tell whether one is male or one is female. I'm sure they are a pair, but they're not sexually dimorphic. That means that the males and the females look exactly the same. So unlike humans, where boys and girls look a bit different, boy and girl secretary birds tend to look exactly the same. Might be a slight difference in size. Often with the raptors, the female is slightly larger. That noise you can hear is an Egyptian goose coming into, so probably shouting at the secretary birds actually. They are the most ridiculous birds. If you see them in a dam shouting at each other, it always looks like one of them is hen pecking the other. I don't know which one, if that's the male or the female is doing the hen pecking, but there's a huge amount of hen pecking that goes along. They very seem to be in a quite harmonious relationship to the Egyptian geese. And there's so many of them. There are hundreds and hundreds of Egyptian geese, mainly apparently because they taste terrible. I've met a few people who've tried them. Apparently oily and very disgusting. We'll just try and get a little bit closer to those magnificent secretary birds. And they're a bit like, you know, that flight thing, a bit like the vultures. But the vultures really do need the air to start to warm before it becomes easy for them to fly. And the secretary bird is very similar in that way. I've seen them try and take off, and when they do take off, they have to run into the wind. It's very difficult for them to fly with the wind behind them. Now you can see them just sort of getting a little bit suspicious of our intentions. They have a slight look of permanent suspicion on their faces. And apparently they're named for those quills that stick out the back of their heads. I'm not sure how that confers upon them the status of secretary, but seemingly it does. This is an extremely rare sighting. Don't often see them at all. They probably do find quite a lot in the way of snakes at this time of the year. Not this time of the day, but the snakes will come out of their holes and spend time in the sun during the winter. And you know, they behave in a quite predictable fashion this time of the year. That's probably what those secretary birds are looking for. They don't seem to be pecking on the ground at anything small like termites. Right, I think we're going to leave those secretary birds and head on a little bit to the north. very rare. So, word on the beat is that there is nothing in the way of big game sightings at Arathusa this morning just yet. So we'll just continue on our lonesome and see what we can pick up. I believe there was a big male leopard seen at the Arathusa Dam early this morning by the observant zoomies and those of you who watch the dam cameras, and I was kind of hoping to come and see him. I'm hoping that he was perhaps the Anderson male about whom I've heard so much. And what I find so interesting about whenever anybody sees a male cat, even if they've never seen a male cat before, it's always, oh, he's a big boy. Everybody thinks he's big immediately. And when they see a female, it's always, even if they've never seen one before, it's, oh, she's a beautiful leopard, or she's a beautiful lioness. And normally that's pretty true. But in terms of the males, it's not always true. We tend to, as humans, for some reason, associate males with big and females with beautiful. And often there's quite a variation in male size, and I believe that the Anderson male is a big male compared with Tingana and Mvula, who we see more often. Neither of them are particularly huge. They are particularly magnificent, however, but they're not particularly brutishly large. So I have a sense of a sort of solidarity with somebody like Mvula, who's managed to get where he has in life, despite his slightly smaller stature. So we had the question a little bit earlier about the clay and about the, not so much the clay, it was indirectly about clay and the amount of the sort of the water, natural water holes, and do they have any salt in them. If you look around just as we drive along, you can see the bush. This is very sandy soil, very ancient, compared with, say, the soils of Rwanda or Southeast Asia, which have had recent volcanic activity. These soils are very nutrient poor. So the plants are hardy, specifically adapted to growing in this kind of environment. Sandy soils, not much in the way of nutrients. But they do suck whatever nutrients there is in the soil they're able to get. So I'm just going to stop here in amongst this little forest. Let's just listen for 10 seconds to the chamber music of the winter. Little robins on violin. Waxbills on violin, actually. The robins are more on viola. The francolins on cello. And there's no double bass playing at the moment. The double bass, of course, is played by the ground hornbill. And there's a drongo playing the clarinet. So we've got a little quintet going. can hear you can maybe be able to hear the hippo in the background, and he's rather disturbingly playing a tuba in a clarinet quintet, which is not normally acceptable. Now, just around us here, you can see that we're in a fairly impenetrable amount of Strychnos madagascarensis, or black monkey orange. And this forest of, sorry, I'm laughing, I believe we have some sort of 10-minute delay to your feed, so you're going to hear what I'm saying 10 minutes after I've said it. Excuse my slightly amused demeanor at the thought of this. So we're looking into a forest of black monkey orange here, and the black monkey orange is it's an encroacher species, but it makes a lively fruit that local people will use, and it's just quite a nice indicator of the sort of amount of nutrients that there are in the bush around here. And so the fruit is large, but and I'm afraid that I can't see any around here. Brian, if you see one, will you shout? It's like a sort of gem squash. It looks like a gem squash, and when you break it open, it's got a very dry pulp, and you can't, I mean, you can eat it straight like that, but it's almost tasteless. And the seeds are poisonous. They've got something called strychnine in them, which is not very good for you. But the pulp can then be mixed up with a bit of honey, if you can find the honey, and it can be dried and kept for years. And so just like the plants have managed to develop a way to live in a nutrient-poor environment, so have the people. They've developed all sorts of innovative ways to store food, to keep food, to make it taste sort of okay, and gather different kinds of plants that if you and I were to walk through here and try and survive throughout the winter time, we wouldn't survive, certainly not without hunting. But 100 years ago, people could find all sorts of plants and fruits and things that they'd use to survive, and sadly that sort of knowledge is disappearing, but I guess that's inevitable throughout the world. So we're running on what seems to be something like a 10-minute lag. Now, if I understand correctly, that means when I say this to you now, I actually said it 10 minutes ago. So the questions that are now coming through are the ones about the secretary birds, which we were looking at 10 minutes ago. So secretary birds do indeed nest in trees. Colleen, thank you for your question. I'm sorry it's a bit late in coming to you, the answer. They do nest in trees, very kind of uncomfortable looking platforms of sticks that if I was a baby bird I'd be slightly offended to be born into. But that is exactly where they live, in untidy platforms. What have we got there, Brian? Brian has spotted an eagle. Brian will shout if you want, when you want me to stop.
No, that's good.
So a secretary bird, everybody, is about, lots of people asking how tall a secretary bird is. That in your picture looks to me like a brown snake eagle. A secretary bird stands about 4 feet off the ground. So that's a pretty tall bird. That is indeed a brown snake eagle we're looking at there, and that's about 2 feet long. 2.5 feet. So a secretary bird, 4 feet is I mean, that's a big bird. Maybe 4 feet's a bit tall. Call it 3.5 feet, 3'6", and that's a pretty good height for a bird. So you can imagine they probably weigh. Our heaviest flying bird out here is the Corey bustard, which I think weighs in at about 18 kilos, maybe a little bit more. and I think that secretary bird is probably about 15 kilograms. And that's... And they probably weigh... Our heaviest flying bird out here is the Corey bustard, which I think weighs in at about 18 kilos, maybe a little bit more. And I think that secretary bird is probably about 15 kilograms. And it's no mean feat getting 15 kilograms off the ground. Hello, Renee Cook. You may find that the answer to your question comes through twice. Mainly because I think I may have answered it before you had time to hear me with this with this lag. You want to know how you tell the difference between a male and a female secretary bird. Renee, you can't. They're not sexually dimorphic at all, so they look the same, the males and the females. And so I suspect there's probably a slight size difference, but it's not obvious on sight. So it's quite difficult to tell the difference between the two. If one happens to be sitting on eggs, pretty good indicator that that's the female. And you also wanted to know what they eat, or what eats them. I think only the biggest eagles would take out a secretary bird. So maybe a martial eagle, maybe a tawny. I mean, a tawny's not particularly big, but they may hit something like that. But probably the big eagles. And then obviously the jackals and the mammals will try and catch them too. Jackal's a big one. And then another question about what secretary birds eat. Again, you're probably going to get this twice. Sorry about that. Secretary birds eat snakes a lot. They stomp on their heads. They walk around and then stomp on their heads and eat them. But when there aren't any snakes, I think they'll eat any kind of meat. Is in fact the leopard. And I'll tell you why. You find them still living outside of protected areas. They can live in semi-desert, almost complete desert. They can live in almost complete forest. So you will find them in North Africa, throughout the Atlas Mountains, through the Levant, down through into Egypt. You'll find they won't occur across the Sahara, but as soon as you get into the Sahel and the sort of semi-desert region south of the Sahara, the leopard will arrive. You probably won't find them in the middle of the Central African rainforests, but you'll certainly find them on the fringes. You do find them certainly in some of the rainforest areas when they fringe with savanna, and then obviously all the way through East Africa, down through Botswana, obviously South Africa, Namibia to our west, Mozambique, where there isn't too much human pressure, and they were lost. I mean, even in places like Cape Town and in places like Pretoria on the Highveld here, they were found until very recently just outside. So I think that you will find that the leopard, good old Panthera pardus, is the most widely distributed wild mammal in Africa. And I believe from all the input from our viewers, we have one sterling intellect there. Well, not sterling in so much as it corresponds with mine, so whether that's true or not, I don't know. Gail, you said leopard. Wonderful. That hippo is now eating soil. Now that is not unusual, but I've seldom seen it before. They're all eating bits of soil. Bits of clay. And this time of the year especially, remember we're in winter, very little nutrition in the grass. A lot of animals will engage in what we call geophagia, which is the sort of sampling of soil to try and replace some of the minerals that aren't around in the food. Remember, they can't pop off to the chemist and buy themselves a a pack of multivitamins like we can. Jim in Arkansas, you asked me a geological question to which I cannot give you a particularly good answer. You want to know what minerals there are in the soil here. It's granite soils, granite-derived soil, so there's a lot of quartzite, and that's pretty much all I can tell you, save to say that it's not very nutrient-rich. That said, on the bottomland areas, quite a lot of sort of lime. You do get quite limey water from the aquifers and from the underground water that we get here. But those are the sort of main minerals that I can think of. But interestingly, although the water is quite limey, the soil in this area is known to be quite calcium poor. But I'll do a bit more research on that. Try and get you a list of minerals that occur in the soil. Hello, John Boy. You say that the hippos are possibly responsible for eroding the bank. Yes, they could be to a certain extent. A nice question from Russell Irvine in California. This appears to be a man-made dam. Russell, this is a more man-made dam than the pool you have at home. Absolutely correct. Now there's a big fat dam wall at the end of it, and you want to know what mechanisms are used to keep it clean enough for animals to live in, A, and B, to drink. Well, Russell, animals out here can drink the foulest water you can imagine. There's no attempt to keep this water clean at all, and it's just not necessary. So the hippos don't mind lying in muddy water, and most of the time they do. Unless they're in a river, they will be in pretty much in muddy water wherever they are. And just about all animals, elephants being a notable exception, will don't really show a great preference for either kind of dirty water or clean water. Elephants will, if they can, they will select for clean water. But I saw a lion 2 days ago drinking out of the muddiest, most vile cesspit of buffalo dung and urine-infested water imaginable. I wouldn't have put my face near it. But the lion lapped it up as though it were sweet elixir. Marianne, nice question. You want to know, do hippos ever eat rocks to maintain their nutritional status, to help with digestion? No, I don't think they do at all. They've got lots of bacteria in the gut that negates the need for that. Then Raina, you want to know, do the hippo ever go up into the lodge? Now the reason I'm using my powerful binoculars just to check if I can see any form of fencing or electrified fencing. And there does seem to be a single strand of electrified wire running in front of the lodge. That will generally be enough to stop the hippo going onto the lawn. If it's not maintained, the hippo would absolutely love to go up there, mainly because that grass, especially come this time of the year, is the only green grazing that there is. So they've got a very green lawn, and we, as human beings, find a brown lawn distasteful to look at. So we water our lawns, and by the end of winter that camp will be a magnet for animals in search, looking for fresh food. So we have often had elephants in camp in the winter time. They come in and they like to eat the trees because the trees maintain a certain amount of moisture that the bush ones don't. So if they can get up into the camp there, they probably will. I'm not sure that that little single strand that I saw is operational all the way around the lodge, so yeah, you've probably got to be quite careful wandering to your room at night at Arathusa Safari Lodge. Right, I think we will leave these hippos, the one cunningly trying to disguise himself with that great blanket of water reeds, and there have been birds flitting in and out of there trying to find bits and pieces to eat as he walks. He thinks he's probably being very stealthy. Those are oxpeckers that have landed on him now. It's quite funny to see. Hippo babies tend to look, they always have a slightly cross look on their face. Hello James, you want to know what kind of grass that is growing in the water? It's not a grass, James, it's a kind of water reed or water lily. I'm not sure what kind it is exactly, I'm afraid. Now, hippo babies always have a slightly sort of cross, sulky look about them. Petulant. I think it's probably because they look like such little fatties. Yeah, eating they're absolutely munching those reeds. Not reeds, but water lilies and water weeds. Cool. Right, well I think we shall press on gently and see what else we can come across. Fire up the engine, the old V6, purring to life she is. Just going to try and find me other hat so that I might shield my pasty white skin from the harshness of the African sun. Of course, my pasty white head, which is now lacking in its natural covering, also must be shielded from the sun. Warming up very nicely now. So for the zoomies and those of you who keep the Arathusa Dam cam going most of the day, I would watch out for elephants coming down there during the day. And while we drive through here, we're going to go across to Brent. I think he's got some alarm calls or something exciting. Brent is generally exciting on his own, so we'll go across to him and see you later.
Welcome back everyone. So a bit of an update from our side is that the male lion called again, but he is east of our boundary. So while we were having a look for tracks around, we heard some kudu alarm calling in this general area. So it seems like the cats are taking me on a seriously wild goose chase today, but hopefully it's going to turn into our luck is going to turn. Chasing alarm calls and roars, and unfortunately not coming up with anything just at the moment, apart from an old buffalo, which is hiding in the thickets. So let me just go have a look at this old boy, and that'll also give us a chance to listen again. Well, it looks like there's more than one. Oh, actually quite a few. All over the place. Standing by. Copy, thanks very much. I'm in the area. I'll go check via Mamba. So here you go, some buffalo bulls. So now I've just got an update on the Game Drive channel that there's lion tracks heading towards our sort of southeastern corner. So all these big buffalo bulls, they've come out here to spend the night away from the cool of the drainage lines. So they come up to the crests where it's a bit warmer, and they're going to start getting moving shortly and move towards the water holes and drainage lines where there's nice grass and some water. I think from where we are, these guys are probably going to head towards Twin Dams. And we are going to do the same, because apparently the guys to the south of us said there are tracks of 2 male lions heading in that general direction. It seems like there's a lot of lion audio going on today, and it's been quite confusing. We definitely heard the Nkahuma Pride very close to where they crossed across our boundary. It looks like they've gone north into the Manuleti. The guys who can go across there went to check. And then there is another pride of lions, which I have not seen yet, that does sometimes come quite close to our eastern boundary, called the Torchwood Pride. And those are probably the lions we were after. But I think there's 2 male lion tracks, almost certainly just from the area they're in, would be the Matimbas. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Hi, PK from Awa. PK is the person who issued me a challenge to find more lizards yesterday. PK, unfortunately, is still a bit cool for the lizards this morning. But PK would also like an update on wild dogs in the area. Do I have one? And specifically some of those pregnant females we saw a couple of weeks ago. So PK, the update on the half-tail pack, which is the big pack, the one we followed around Arathusa a week or so ago, that they have denned to the south and east of us on a neighboring property, and so unfortunately they didn't den on us. Now the pack of 5, or the Investec pack, no one knows whether they've denned yet. The last place they were seen was near our northwestern boundary in the Manuleti Game Reserve, and there has not been an update for about 5 or 6 days on them. So there's a strong possibility that they have denned, but in the Manuleti. But it is close enough that we might possibly get them on their hunting trips coming down here. So I was up in that area near where we found the lion tracks crossing this morning. Is the area I've been keeping a very close lookout for the wild dog tracks, but nothing as of yet. Hi, George from Florida. George would like to know if I've got any updates. I seem to be the news anchor for Juma and the animals about where the sticks females with those 3 bundles of joy, those 3 very cute little lion cubs are. And I have an update. They were seen yesterday to the east of us, all looking in good order and good health. And they were seen then moving further south. So unfortunately further away from us, but nice to know that they're all in good health still. And so Mom's doing a very good job. All 3 little ones are still present and accounted for. Hi Blair. Blair, I shall keep on my reporting duties. I like to know what's going on around there. So Blair would like to know if I have an update on what has happened with the Birmingham boys. They were in Buffelshoek, which is to the north of us, two mornings ago, and they have now crossed north into the Manyareti. And so they hopefully will come back. I'm still here, but I've got a very strong suspicion that they're going to become quite a formidable coalition. About male lions, the skybird males, who I wasn't sure who they were or where they're from, are apparently originally from the Timbavati, and it is a coalition of 9 males. Isn't that absolutely fascinating? And they were last apparently moved territory slightly into the Manyareti, the northern sections of the Manyareti, and east into Kruger. So that traditionally falls within where the Birminghams might roam. So it could be quite interesting whether those skybird males push the Birmingham boys further down towards us. Always checking the junctions for the tracks. So now that we've done our morning updates, the news is over. We'll be handing over to our other correspondent, who has got his, let me think how to put this, is hands-on somewhere out there in the bush. So over to James, who is hands-on, busy scuffling around. And we'll be back with you a little later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy. I've been sat at this termite mound now for about 3 minutes, hoping desperately that by the time you came across to us, I would have something interesting to show you, rather like the chimpanzee trying to get the termites out of the termite mound. But as I broke open the top to expose a tunnel, I expected there to be a great wash of metabolic heat from inside the mound, but there isn't any, and I don't think this has actually been active for a little while. I'm just going to... Brian, can you hear that? I think it was too faint for the microphone to pick up. There was a lion calling. Long way north of us. Very unusual this time of the day. Lots of territorial dispute going on at the moment. Yeah, it stopped calling. And my grass twig is indeed termite free. Sorry about that. You never can tell how the termites will behave. Take my scarf off, such as the burgeoning heat of the day. And we're still on Arethusa, heading in a northerly direction towards that Lion Pride Sound, but I think that's probably well north of where we're allowed to go, I'm afraid. Maybe not. We'll just keep going north as far as we can, and then we'll turn back east. Hello Diana in northwest England. I wonder which part of northwest England you are in. Probably a fairly termite-free zone there. Nice question. What would cause termites to abandon their mounds? It's not so much a question of abandonment as it is a question of the queen dying out. And so when she stops producing eggs, the termites will probably keep building until they die, and then there's just no more of them. So they don't sort of, unlike a beehive which will abandon an area and go and build a hive somewhere else, termites won't move mounds, as far as I'm aware. Then the other thing is that that termite mound is not abandoned. I think the termites have for some reason disappeared far underground, possibly because of the temperature, because of the cold, and I think they've just left that particular tunnel unattended, and that's why there's nothing going on there. And a question from I think it's Savannah. Lovely name that. Savannah, you want to know about termites in homes, and it's quite a common question that we get, and a valid one, especially to those living in North America. Remember, there are lots of termite mounds around here, but in South Africa we don't build with timber, so none of the walls in our homes are made of wood, and so we don't tend to have anything like the troubles you have. Where we do have troubles is on the wooden decking, which we have to treat very carefully and check for termites all the time. But because that's just wooden decking where we'd sit on verandas, we do have to replace it from time to time because of the termites, but it's not a major issue like it is in areas where you build in timber. Hello Diana, again, you're in Lancashire. Very nice, I think. Well, not as nice as here perhaps, but it's probably quite nice as far as England goes. You want to know, do we get fire here, and are there any plants that depend on fire to germinate the seeds? Diana, I can't think of, we do get lots of fire here. It's very important for the bush. It clears away the moribund grass. It burns away some of the dead wood that's around the place. It tends to help with disease control. It doesn't clear bush, but it does take away dead grass. All of the trees here are adapted to surviving fire, so they can all cope with fire. And while their tops of the trees die off, it's actually just in an area where there had been a fire before. You crossed us before the hippo. All the trees will die off on top, and then they sprout again from the bottom, and they survive perfectly. The grasslands are often what we call fire, or used to be called fire climax grasslands. Just got some impala all staring in one direction over there. I'm going to stop here and listen while we explain. See that, Brian?
Okay.
A long way away, so we won't get a great view of them, but they're definitely all staring in one direction. And unless they're particularly fascinated by fire ecology, there's no reason for them to be looking over here. You can see them there, Brian?
Yep.
They seem to be relaxing slightly now. Never a great sign. We'll just carry on down the road here. So Diana, a lot of our grasslands in this country do depend on their health. Their health depends on fires coming through them every so often. So nice question, thank you for that. I've no doubt, especially in the, I know in the Fynbos regions, which is a long way from here, down in the Western Cape and on the mountains of the, leading up into the Eastern Cape, there's a specific type of floral kingdom called the Fynbos, where all sorts of very different kinds of plants. It's the most species-rich plant diversity in the world, the Fynbos has, even more so than the Amazon. And a lot of those species will not germinate without fire, so they do need fire every so often. Hello Laureen in Michigan, 2 questions from you. One a fairly typical one, the other not so much. The first one being, what is the biggest snake that I've ever come across? Well, Laureen, the biggest snake I ever came across was actually in a sort of, I was helping film I was performing in a thing where we were sort of setting up a snake catching exercise where I was playing the trainer of these potential students for snake catching, and we brought in a 5-meter python. Now 5 meters is about 17 feet. So the python, African rock python, 17 feet long. And I had to then pretend to be the expert and catch it. Now I'm no snake wrangler. I will catch the odd snake if I have the right equipment, but I'm not Steve Irwin. I'm not going to jump on the back end of a snake unless I can avoid it. But so it fell on me, and the guy said to me, well, I'll tell you what, all you need to do is just toss a wet rag. I'm not going to jump on the back end of a snake unless I can avoid it. But so it fell on me, and the guy said to me, well, I'll tell you what, all you need to do is just toss a wet rag, a wet t-shirt over its head, and then before it's shaking it off, grab it behind the head. But he said be careful because it's 5 meters long. So once you've got it around the head, unless everybody else grabs a piece of the body, it's going to twist itself around you and you're going to be facing the snake like that, with its great big mouth open and ready to swallow your face. Now, while there was never any danger that the snake would try and eat me, pythons possess a very nasty bite. And on more than one occasion during the ensuing mayhem as I tried to catch the thing, it nearly bit me, and as it rose up, it always sort of came up at the right height for my nether regions, which resulted in my making some very unmanly screams. Anyway, we eventually caught the python, put him back in his box, and no one was harmed. Most importantly, not the python. And the most, then you've asked, your second question was, what was the thing that has influenced me the most in the bush? You may lose us here, so if you do, I'm sorry about that. We're in a slightly dodgy signal area. Difficult to say. Laureen, I think we're just going to stop here and I'll quickly tell you. Laureen, I can't pick. It's like when somebody says to you, what's your favorite song? It's almost impossible to answer that question because it just depends on the time and how you're feeling. So for me, my favorite times in the bush have been with 1 or 2 good friends, in a place of extraordinary beauty. So sitting on top of a kopje, which is a rocky outcrop, looking out west to the Drakensberg with the sun going down, or waking up early in a winter's morning and going and sitting on a high point and watching the sun come up. with a hot cup of coffee with some good friends. Those have been my favorite times and the ones that have touched me the most in the bush. Lots of animal incidents, but difficult to pick one. We're going to go across to Brent while we get through this dodgy signal area, and we'll see you just on the other side of it.
Welcome back, everyone. We are on the trail of lions again. Now, with the amount of lion calling and tracks and activity that's going on this morning, I can honestly say I do not have a clue which lions these could be possibly. I just heard that the sticks with the cubs were found again this morning near the Kruger National Park boundary. And we had tracks of a male and 2 females heading in this direction. I can't seem to see them now. I'm just going to check the next road that cuts into Djuma, and then I'm going to go back to the last tracks and I'll give you a show of the tracks, and you can see they're nice and fresh. But I'm unfortunately, it seems this morning, patrolling boundaries, and the tracks seem to decide to vacate our premises. But hopefully this will be a different scenario. Hi, Michelle from Seattle, Washington. Michelle is planning a visit to the Sabi Sands, and she would like to know if other reserves or other lodges are allowed to drive on Djuma and Arathusa, and do we share our information about all the sightings? Well, Michelle, we do. Only certain lodges can drive on Djuma and Arathusa, obviously apart from Djuma and Arathusa, and you would have to research which ones exactly those are. But even the lodges where we don't have shared traverse with, we do have radio channels where we can get hold of each other, and we will communicate. So even though the Styx Pride is very far from where our traverse area is, the guys have let me know just in case, so I don't spend hours upon hours looking for lions that aren't there. And we would do the same for them. If a lion crossed out of our area into their area, we'd jump on the radio and say, listen guys, lions crossed the road here, good luck. So we do share information about animal sightings between all of us, and obviously that helps all of us in giving the best game drive possible and finding the most animals. Although for me, on this wonderful sunrise safari, all the information I seem to get is about lions leaving and not coming in. But hopefully this last set of tracks I was looking at now have decided to go north, not south. It is quite difficult to see tracks on this road because it is a very busy access road used by quite a number of lodges. So you have delivery trucks bringing the food and maintenance vehicles and guests coming in and out on transfer vehicles. So sometimes it can make tracking on these roads quite challenging. So the last track I saw was around base here. Let us see which way did they go. I'm just checking very carefully here. I will show you a track now. I'm just trying to establish which way they went. And unfortunately, that does not look like good news for us. I'm just going to move the vehicle so Jean-Ray can show you the truck. How's the shadows on that side? Okay, I'm just going to jump out and I'll show you where it is now. Where did I spot that truck? I have to move again. You see it from there? No. Okay, well, I'm going to try, let me see if there's one a bit closer. But there have been vehicles up and down and over them. But I will try and move the car so you can have a nice look. It's a lioness track. Okay. So unfortunately we are on our southern boundary and here's the track. You can see two distinct there, back foot, front foot, and then unfortunately she turned and there's the next track and the more difficult to see. But in the softer sand, so more spread, so it's even bigger than the ones on the harder sand, and she has continued south. Oh dear. Don't worry, I haven't given up yet. When in doubt, take a guess. So I'm going to guess where I might find some animals now. And obviously when I say guess, I'm not really meaning just a straight guess. It is an educated guess. So at this time of the year, looking at areas that are likely to hold animals. So we're going to go check some water holes. I think the first one will be Twin Downs, since we're right here. And then towards Treehouse next, I think. It's always quite exciting coming up on Twin Dams because you come from, oh, look at that. My favorite antelope species. A little female bushbuck. It looks like she might be eating a bone. Let me just move forward a little bit, just judging from the way she's chewing like that. And there is an old carcass in this area. Isn't she beautiful and so relaxed? You can actually see there's some old bones around, and it definitely looks like she's picked up a small piece and is eating it for calcium. There you can see she's about to pass a bigger piece of bone there at her feet. Oh, and she is licking it. So it's obviously she's very definitely feeling like she's got a lack of calcium in her diet at the moment, and she's busy chewing on these old buffalo bones. What did she hear? We didn't. No. I love the way bushbuck walk. They're so delicate. Always stopping and listening. Very alert. Oh, and look, in front of us there's Chandra, coming to join. I would say this is her youngster. Looks like another little young female. And that's what she's listening. And you can see where, as we get around to her, there we go. And she's walking now. You can see that very delicate walk, almost very, very considered where they put their feet, and constantly listening as well. So the Zulu name for bushbuck is Mbabala. And it is after all those very delicate little white spots we can see on them, and it basically translates to the one who has been drawn on. So really, really beautiful little antelope. And as I was saying, it's always really exciting as you approach the Twin Dams waterhole, is because you've got this wall when you come from the south, so you never quite know what's going to be on the other side. With these two looking so relaxed, unfortunately I don't think there's going to be a predator, but looks like the little one's going to go join mom. And you can see both of them there, and she's seriously having a good lick at that bone, or even chewing it. Look at that. And she's picked up an old buffalo rib and chewing on it quite substantially. Let's see if she does that again. So I know I've asked this question a few times before, but it's always good to check if you guys have been listening. What is it called when animals chew on bones like that when they have a lack of calcium? And you can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. Very gnawing at the end of that rib, trying to break off obviously smaller pieces. It's a bit too big for her. And not often you'll see a bushbuck pick up a piece of bone that big. Obviously that she's come across this buffalo carcass, a very old buffalo carcass here, and there's some vertebrae and ribs, and I know there's a skull I've seen in the grass here somewhere. So there we go, she's broken off a little piece of bone and now chewing it. And when we first spotted her, you could almost immediately see that she wasn't sort of chewing what her normal diet, sort of leaves and that, just from the way she was chewing. See, far more up and down than the sort of side-to-side motion if she had been chewing or ruminating. And there the little ones joined her. You can hear something in the dam, and I think that's what the little one is as well. I can hear sort of like splashing and whatnot. I'm going to hesitant to guess that I think it's probably a bird that's feeding or fishing. So we'll leave these two little bushbuck and just move forward slightly. That's what I do love about this. You see there's the wall in front of us there, and you never really know what's on the other side. Well, I know one thing that's on the other side. I can hear a hammerkop calling. So we're going to sneak up and see what's on the other side. Aha. Oh, and it's got a fish. So that's what we heard fishing, and it's just caught a fish. I'll try to see what type of fish now. Wow, it looks like it's got a nice sized tilapia there. Well done, saddlebow. Yes, definitely a tilapia. A Mozambique tilapia would be my guess, just looking at the color of the fish. And, oh, there we go. See, I have to put it back into a little bit of water there. I think it's trying to make sure it's dead and stab it. There we go, making sure, and it's put it into a little pool there that it can't escape out of. It's a very big tilapia. Isn't that incredible? So even though it's caught it, it hasn't quite managed to kill it yet, and obviously trying to swallow a live fish that's moving around a lot is going to be quite difficult. So what that saddleball is doing is now stabbing it with that very sharp beak of it, and to try actually kill it and make it safe for consumption. And that bird you heard calling there was the hammerkop, which we will have a look at once we've watched this. Oh, there's a hammerkop walking into shot. Well cued, I think, that time. Let's watch what this saddleball does and see how long it takes. It is quite a big fish, even for a big bird like that. And you can see it holds it to feel if there's any movement, and then pops it back into the water. Oh, it's got stuck on the end of the beak. Looks like no, not yet. So when it's time to swallow that tilapia, the saddle will line it up in a sort of straight line to try and get it straight down the gullet. There we go. Looks like it might be lining up for a swallow now. No, decided there's still a little bit of life left in that poor tilapia. From an interest point of view, if any of you eat a tilapia in the United States, I know it is quite readily available in a lot of your supermarkets, and it is actually the same species or a hybrid of this exact species of tilapia we're watching the saddlebow stork eat at the moment. I'm not going to try to go any closer at the moment, just in case they move. But maybe we will just sit, and if they become more relaxed with our presence, we might slide a little bit closer. So as I was saying about the tilapia, the Mozambique tilapia is the tilapia that is readily available in a lot of supermarkets in the States, but it's actually a hybrid. It's a cross between a Nile tilapia and a Mozambique tilapia. Mozambique tilapia, oh, is it time to go down the gullet? So it might even be possibly a little bit big for this saddleball. And as I was saying, so the tilapia species that you have on sale in the supermarkets in the United States is a hybrid between a Mozambique and a Nile tilapia. Mozambique tilapia, which the saddleball is busy with there, is the best eating of the tilapia species. And magnificent flesh, really tasty, but it is quite slow growing. Whereas the Nile tilapia, although the flesh is still very good, but not nearly as tasty, is the fastest growing of the tilapia species. So they've hybridized the two to create a fast growing and still very good eating fish, and that's what you're able to purchase in the supermarkets in America. So I'm going to try slide forward a little bit. I think the saddleballs are quite relaxed with our presence at the moment. One of the main reasons is that the saddleball tries to deal with a fish in a little bit of water is due to the fact they don't like eating dirt. So obviously in a little bit of water they can keep it clear of sand and dust. And now the saddleball is busy escorting the hammerkop away from it. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Come on, is it time for down the gullet yet? I think the fishes definitely might be a little bit too big for the saddleball to just wolf down. You can hear those hammerkops making a lot of noise. I'm sure they're quite jealous of a fish of that size, even though that fish is probably weighs about the same as the hammerkop. Hi, Michael, Flagstaff. Michael, we'll get to your question in a second. As you can see, those pair of bushbuck, the female and the youngster, have come down to have a drink. And that saddleball stork is, I think, going to be a while of stabbing before he's ready to swallow. And you can see there's a hammerkop just in the foreground in front of the bushbuck. So Michael would like to know what is the source of the water in the water holes and rivers here. Well, in the north where we are, a lot of these are man-made, including the one we're sitting at now. So they've just put a dam wall across a little natural depression, but they're not pumped, so the water here is from the rains during the wet season, and obviously as it gets drier and drier. Oh, this saddleball seems to have seen something, maybe another fish. And now oh, Lisa seems, it sounds like the hammerkops are laughing at the stork's inability to swallow his prey. But this other one obviously saw some movement of a fish or a frog in the water and moved quite quickly there. And now it's just keeping still and having a look. So obviously, for a lot of the aquatic birds, as these water holes dry up, it makes the hunting of fish and frogs and other aquatic insects much easier. Well done to Shanae, Debbie, Gail, and Marianne, who got that question spot on. The question was, what do you call it when an antelope or a mammal, actually all species, start eating bones for calcium? And the answer to that is osteophagia. Well done, guys. So I'm wondering whether this poor saddle-billed stork is actually going to be able to swallow that fish. I'm pretty sure it's dead as a doorknob by now, but I think it might just be a little bit big. So guys, I think that tilapia might be a little bit give up on such a nice big meal like that. So it might just be using its beak to break down the sort of sharp spines and bones and get it to the point where it's enabled. It's going to be able to swallow it. So it has been a rather frustrating sunrise safari, but still wonderful to be out in the bush as always. And we've had such a fantastic time out there tracking, and I'm sure James has been keeping you entertained while the cats have been keeping me, I wouldn't go as far as to say entertained, but definitely making me work a little bit harder today, the cat species. And hopefully we are able to rectify the fact that they are completely confusing me at the moment, quite shortly. But for the last couple of seconds, we're going to cross back to saddle-billed storks. But before then, guys, it's been really wonderful having you. Thanks very much for joining us, and thanks to all our team in Final Control and the people who fix gremlins. And it's been spectacular being out here in this beautiful early morning, and we will hopefully see you on the sunset safari. But in the meantime, for those of you who want, there's a huge herd of elephants that have just arrived at the Arathusa waterhole, so you can tune into the Arathusa waterhole camera to see what's going on with those elephants. We're going to have one last look to see if the stork manages to swallow the tilapia.